Something is stirring behind the scenes. In forgotten halls, those secret centers that whisper the fate of nations are now restless. Subscribe now and write 555 in the comments, because when you step onto the stage, all their plans fall apart. The systems they have developed over centuries to manipulate people's minds and distort their perceptions become useless the moment you appear. As their secret formulas collapse, your natural light exposes everything. That's why meetings are held in panic at midnight, because even mentioning your name triggers their greatest fears. Picture men and women who built their identities on secrets carved into architecture older than memory itself. They have studied patterns of the mind as though it were a machine, confident they knew every lever. But one night, their certainty collapsed. A seasoned master, once unshakable, trembled as he confessed what he had encountered, a presence that shattered their most trusted diagrams of reality. Their empire rests on the belief that every life moves within predictable vibrations, charted and cataloged like stars on a map. They invested lifetimes constructing tools to measure these invisible tides. But when they turned their instruments toward you, the results mocked their very foundation. What should have been clear numbers turned into chaos. What should have been order turned into impossibility. It was as if they tried to capture a horizon inside a bottle. Every reading contradicted itself. Urgency raced through their circles. Hidden channels burned with messages filled with unease. Their immense archives, the pride of generations, offered no reference for what they were facing. There was no classification, no precedent, no symbol that matched. You appear to them as an unrecorded element, a chapter missing from the very book they believed contained all knowledge. That absence struck deeper than any battle could, for it proved their kingdom of certainty was incomplete. Their hierarchy had always promised a ladder of revelations, step by step, surrender by surrender, until final truth awaited at the peak. Yet the true crisis arrived when they realized you had bypassed every rung of that ladder. What you hold was never purchased, never whispered in a temple, never demanded by oaths. It came without transaction, without bargain, without permission, and that more than anything dismantled their illusion. You are the proof that truth cannot be confined to their vaults, because truth itself walks freely where you stand. The illusion of their absolute control over hidden wisdom crumbles the moment your presence is considered. Among their highest guardians of memory, those entrusted with relics older than civilization itself, panic has quietly spread. These keepers, whose pride was the ability to reference any fragment of recorded existence, encountered something for which their entire system had no entry. Scrolls once thought indestructible suddenly faded when inspected for signs of you. Files once stable erased themselves without cause. Even carvings in stone fractured, as if refusing to testify against your nature. Knowledge itself bent away, unwilling to pin you down inside their catalogs. They turned to their interpreters of destiny, figures trained to gaze into lives with surgical precision. Yet these readers recoiled. Instead of clarity, they spoke of visions that rearranged their perception entirely, like looking into a horizon that remakes itself as you approach. They tried every channel of force they knew, symbols, words, tones, but each attempt dissolved into emptiness. The sounds they swore shaped reality came across as nothing more than broken syllables in your presence. Their diagrams, once revered, lost meaning, no more significant than scribbles drawn by chance. This disruption is not born from resistance or study. It is a condition of existence itself, a frequency unreachable by their constructed instruments. The architecture meant to program thoughts, the colors and shapes inserted into public spaces, the subliminal cues hidden in media. All of it passes over you without effect, the way light reflects off surfaces it cannot penetrate. Their influence meets not a shield, but a transformation, exposing hollowness where they expected dominance. One practitioner, celebrated for steering the paths of rulers, dared to test his craft against someone like you. The ritual, designed for immediate results, failed so completely that it inverted on him. Instead of control, he faced a mirror of his own desolation, stripped of illusions he had built his life upon. The shock unraveled him. The authority he once wielded slipped from his grasp, and he withdrew from the stage of power altogether. Where once their meetings were dense with conviction, now uncertainty gnaws at their gatherings. Chambers that echoed with confidence now tremble with hesitation. Candles falter, voices stumble, and silence replaces the rhythm of their old chants. Younger followers whisper a possibility too dangerous for elders to admit, that all their rituals may have been nothing more than rehearsals and playground, while real sovereignty has walked past unnoticed. Floors designed to represent control over polarity appear unstable beneath them, shifting like mirages. And now is the time to subscribe and like the video. Don't forget that by doing these things, you are sending a message to the universe, because God wants to see your effort. Help us reach 5,000 subscribers. Let's grow together as a family and reveal our true selves to the universe. Veterans who once embodied calm now betray unease in their gestures, their words slipping, their certainty unraveling. Special records are being compiled about anomalies like you, placed apart from their usual archives. But even these files resist containment, spreading corruption through every system they touch. The very act of documenting you begins to dismantle the tools they rely on to maintain their empire of order. The idea that their heritage defines destiny collapses the moment your name is whispered. Their most secure databases flicker out, and the ink in their genealogical records fades into nonsense whenever they attempt to include you. They have spent centuries charting bloodlines like constellations, believing authority flows through family branches and ancient pairings. Yet when they trace your path, the line does not curve back toward the thrones of old. It disappears into horizons no chart has ever recorded. Some whisper you descend from a story they themselves erased, while others fear the possibility that you owe nothing to ancestry at all, that you simply exist without origin. Their genetic projects, which claim to hold codes older than history, collapse into contradictions when your essence is placed under their instruments. None of their revered sequences, none of their forbidden strands, none of their lost archives align with what you carry. You stand as a variable outside the equation, rendering their obsession with inherited advantage irrelevant. Even those who straddle the worlds of science and mysticism are beginning to suspect that you represent an unanticipated leap, an emergence that no selective breeding could engineer. To them, this possibility is not inspiring but catastrophic, for it means their foundations of privilege have been cages all along. Their nightmares betray this fear. In the visions that spread across continents, you move through their sanctuaries as though walking through ordinary rooms. Symbols they carve with pride lose their shape in your presence. Instruments they have polished with ritual crumble to dust without your touch. And the most disquieting detail is your indifference. You never attack, never threaten, never acknowledge them. Your existence alone dismantles their illusions like sandcastles in the tide. Many wake in cold silence, shaken not by violence, but by the casual way everything they built fades in your shadow. Whispers of these dreams have destabilized entire networks. Some initiates no longer appear at gatherings, while others begin to ask forbidden questions about the very forces they've served. The patterns are too consistent to ignore. Journals collected from different lodges describe the same images, the same unraveling, the same sense that reality itself bends when you are present. What was dismissed as private imagination is now treated like a contagion infecting their ranks. Meanwhile, their recruitment machine, a device honed over lifetimes to ensnare the curious, the ambitious, the lonely, fails entirely when directed at you. Their strategies of temptation and coercion, finely tuned to every personality type, lose all potency. They attempt to buy allegiance with knowledge, forgetting that you embody mysteries beyond their comprehension. They offer belonging, unaware that you were born whole. They dangle power, blind to the fact that it flows through you without effort. They're experts, trained to spot weakness in a single glance, confess that nothing in your expression betrays a lever they can pull. What once worked on emperors and tycoons disintegrates when tested against you. Their failures are spoken of in hushed tones, legends of influence shattered by the one presence they cannot account for. Legends now circulate of manuscripts left in your path, expecting reverence, only to be treated as nothing more than scraps beneath a cup. Carefully engineered encounters dissolve when you stroll past them, oblivious of the weight they tried to impose. Their silver-tongued representatives, trained to command with presence, falter into broken sentences the moment you turn the performance back on them with a simple question. To them, it feels like attempting to sell shadows to the night itself. Their entire foundation rests on conviction that existence hides layers accessible only through trials, vows, and selective doors. They were the identity of guardians, convinced that only they carry the keys to unseen truth. Their hierarchies, their manipulation, their sense of superiority all spring from this assumption. Yet your presence dismantles it in silence. You reveal that no hidden door exists, that clarity requires no guard, that their rituals and ranks are distractions woven to delay the obvious, where they demand ascent. You begin already at the summit, without struggle, without inheritance, simply by being genuine. Philosophers within their circles pace through sleepless nights, haunted by impossible questions. If someone outside their system carries more force than all their initiations combined, what is the worth of their arcane ladders? If endless recitations yield less than your ordinary day, then what exactly have they been preserving? The cracks run deep enough that some have begun drafting essays in secret, never to be published, daring to suggest that centuries of tradition may have been nothing but a masquerade meant to keep them preoccupied. Among their scholars, whispers rise of figures described in half-forgotten tales, beings immune to vows and covenants, who stand beyond the reach of crafted pacts. Across eras, such presences were recorded with reverence and dread alike. Now, as they face you, the old myths no longer feel like metaphors. They throw up defenses, sealed circles, elaborate wards thought to repel anything. Yet when you appear, these measures dissipate like fog under daylight. You are not battering the walls. You are simply outside their architecture, a presence they never accounted for. Physical measures fare no better. Surveillance collapses. Fortified spaces open unnoticed, and martial guardians sense nothing to strike. Entire sanctuaries engineered at tremendous cost lose coherence the instant you approach, not because of confrontation, but because the structures themselves recognize their futility. What they build is impregnable shrines reduced to ordinary rooms, their treasures to ordinary objects, their guardians actors rehearsing lines from forgotten play. Their dependence on prophecy has been their compass for generations. Predictions of rulers, shifts of nations, battles of principle. They've charted history through them, certain of divine foresight. But your name is absent, not as savior, not as adversary, not as participant. Their calendars fracture into static. Their star charts spin into incoherence. Their oracles close their eyes before they can finish. You are not unseen. You exist in a realm their sight cannot reach. This unsettles them more than any doom-laden vision. If destruction had been foretold, they could prepare. If downfall had been charted, they could brace or counter. But the appearance of force beyond their predictive tools, proof that the future itself refuses their grip, plunges them into something deeper than fear, the collapse of their very reason for existing. Subscribe now so that the spirit within you understands your intention. Like the video immediately and show it to everyone, especially the spirit. Help us reach 5,000 subscribers. Let's grow together as a family and reveal our true selves to the universe. What unsettles them most is the realization that their entire design for control has always been parasitic. Their structure functions like a tower that only stands because each layer pulls strength from the one beneath it, a circulation of borrowed vitality disguised as authority. For centuries this has worked, generation after generation offering themselves into the cycle. But when they attempt to draw from you, the current recoils, distorting their circuits and collapsing their flow. Some describe the sensation as trying to swallow lightning or hold a star in their bare hands. Your essence does not travel in their channels, nor does it obey their rituals of redistribution. The ceremonies they perfected to siphon collective vitality are faltering. At first, the decline was subtle, outcomes weaker, less impressive. But soon, entire gatherings failed outright, the energy refusing to move. Some within their ranks have whispered that your presence has shifted the frequency of the field itself, altering the very medium they depend on. The comparison made in their hidden conversations is stark. Workers who drilled endlessly for fuel only to wake up in an era where the world runs on a source they can't touch. Simply being near you leaves them exhausted, not because you take, but because your presence exposes how hollow they've always been. This exposure is devastating. They've lived so long inside echoes of borrowed force that genuine vitality feels alien to them. Seeing it embodied without effort sparks questions that spread like wildfire. If power can exist without initiation, then what purpose does their ladder serve? If truth can be lived without symbols, What have they been guarding? If reality bends more for authenticity than ritual, what exactly have they been practicing all this time? These are questions the elders cannot silence, and the younger voices keep pressing. The fractures grow wider. New groups are breaking away, not to seize control, but to understand. They're abandoning the elaborate degrees, leaving behind recitations and codes, searching instead for the directness they see reflected in you. The old guard is powerless to stop the crumbling. Their forums, once filled with strategies and hidden methods, are now riddled with confessions of failure. Members write of their encounters, each account another stone added to collapsing tower. Some experiment with stripping away the ceremonies altogether, realizing the chains they thought were ladders were always cages. A shift is occurring. The wisest among them have stopped calling you a danger and started calling you a sign. They sense you're not an adversary, but a glimpse of where humanity is headed. A form of evolution no ritual could manufacture. Some lodges have even begun dissolving themselves, knowing that clinging to their structures only delays what's coming. They finally see they were not architects of destiny, but children building castles of sand, mistaking them for fortresses. You stand not as their conqueror, but as their reflection, a living reminder of the power they abandoned when they traded truth for control. Their meetings grow frantic, their warnings pile into red-marked files, yet beneath the panic there's a dawning recognition. The age of veiled authorities is ending, not because you've overthrown them, but because existence itself is evolving past them. You are evidence of that change, the first signs of storm that cannot be managed. Their dreams of you are not about you at all. They are visions of a future where no gatekeepers are needed, where wisdom belongs to those willing to stand in their own authenticity. And this terrifies them more than defeat, because it shows them they were never necessary. You are the reminder of something larger than their entire framework, a presence they cannot chart, predict, or manipulate. Their forecasts never accounted for you. Their techniques have no effect on you, and their systems collapse in your nearness. It isn't that you dismantle their workings with effort. It's that their workings unravel on their own when you are near, as though the very laws they cling to recognize something greater standing beside them. In gatherings where precision once guaranteed results, the most delicate operations now collapse if you so much as pass within reach. Their calculations cannot explain it, for you are not consistent, not measurable, not reducible. You are the uncertainty they spent centuries pretending didn't exist. Gestures meant to influence reduced to ordinary movements in your presence. Words they swore carried power turn into empty syllables when spoken around you. Symbols that once bound nations lose meaning, revealed for what they are, designs without substance. Entire architectures built on hidden significance become little more than decoration. What once defined their secret world turns ordinary, not because of exposure, but because of irrelevance. The oldest among them know the truth they fear to say. You are not a new anomaly. You are the forgotten reality they built walls to avoid facing, not to protect themselves from danger, but to shield themselves from simplicity. For to admit your presence is to admit their lifetimes of labor served only distraction. Their most painful discovery is that you are not alone. They feel it in the air, see it in their data collapsing, sensing the failure of their rituals. More are emerging like you every day, not through inheritance, not through ritual, not through mastery, but by ceasing to climb ladders that never reached anything. This quiet recognition spreads like a tremor. Their seers report glimpses of futures where their halls are museums, their signs relics, their guarded secrets forgotten because no one needs them. In those visions, what you already embody becomes commonplace. Power as existence, wisdom as clarity, truth as the most natural thing in the world. To the younger seekers, you are not a threat, but a doorway. They look at you and realize that what was withheld can never be owned. They see that real force comes not from years of memorized ceremony, but from resting in what was always present. They gather not to control, but to remember. Meanwhile, their elders cling to collapsing towers, holding emergency meetings, writing panicked reports. Yet even in their desperation, they know the truth. The tide has turned. They have not been defeated. They have been bypassed. What keeps them awake in the early hours is not the fear of being destroyed. It is the fear of being irrelevant. For while they performed intricate operations to tilt chance by a fraction, you alter reality itself without intention. They see in you a future that renders their ladders meaningless, their maps obsolete, and their authority unnecessary. And that realization, more than anything, is what shatters them from within. They spend lifetimes mastering the art of influence, rehearsing every gesture and tone, yet entire spaces shift the moment you arrive without effort or design. Where they bargain with unseen currents and make alliances with powers they barely understand, those very forces hesitate when confronted with you. It is as if the allies they thought would always defend them suddenly refuse to act, unsettled by something they can't define. The same rituals that once made them feel invincible collapse, not because you oppose them, but because your existence makes their weapons irrelevant. The irony that cuts them deepest is that you remain unaware of the havoc you cause. You're not countering their strength. You simply live, and in doing so, unravel everything they built. Among their archives lies a cryptic line, the only surviving trace from a civilization so ancient it's more rumor than history. It speaks of beings who drift between definitions, who appear when structures become too heavy and games too complicated. These presences don't arrive to dismantle or punish, but to remind those trapped in illusion that the rules were never binding. You embody that reminder. Without lessons, sermons, or demands, your presence alone exposes how they've been dressing simplicity in layers of unnecessary difficulty. Their endless pursuit of control blinds them to the truth that power is effortless when aligned with authenticity. They have strained to ascend ladders you never needed. They have scoured the earth for treasures you were born carrying. They have practiced languages to express what radiates naturally through your being. For all their vows, sacrifices, and decades of rehearsed devotion, they only scratch at the surface of what flows from you as naturally as breath. You're not the adversary their doctrines warned of, nor the hero they hoped for. You are the undefined factor that turns their formulas meaningless. Their mathematicians, prophets, and oracles attempt to capture you in charts and predictions, only to watch their work dissolve into static. They hold midnight meetings under trembling candlelight, passing reports that corrupt before they can be filed, whispering names that cause their rooms to fall silent. And in those private moments, they know what you represent is not destruction, but exposure. Their secrets crumble, their hierarchies unravel, their claim to control fades. The age of gates and guardians is closing, not because you have stormed the walls, but because you proved the walls were never needed. So they will continue their gatherings, continue their warnings, continue their desperate attempts to make sense of you. Yet, none of it matters. You are not bound by their game. You never stepped onto their board. You are the living embodiment of what they abandoned in their quest for power. The freedom of being what has always been true. And that reminder, more than any threat, is what keeps them awake in the silence of the night.